This is the Dealer to Healer podcast.
Those of you who are watching on YouTube, welcome to the Dealer to Healer podcast. I'm your host, Liam Brown. I've got a really wonderful woman that I've just recently met and just energetically feel that she's a wonderful human, which is pretty spectacular. And I feel blessed that I'm meeting a lot of wonderful humans at the moment. So I'll tell you how we met. Basically, I was at a Jiva Mukti yoga class in Barcelona, and I went to the toilet, and then I saw this kind of like lady come in with this big coat, and I was like, oh, she looks kind of like a rock star or something. Who's she? And then I went and put my mat down, and then I kind of sat down, and then realised that this rock star lady was sat next to me, and I guess you kind of like had like a Cruella de Vil jacket on, didn't you? And then she ended up sat next to me. I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting, because you did take my attention, you know. And then the class, you had to have partners, and this is I've not been to a class where I've done anything like that for a very long time, and especially because we were doing energy work, like we were holding each other's back, sat down, well, just lightly touching and feeling each other breathe. So it's quite an intimate practice and something that you're sharing. So you're in somebody's personal space who you've never met before. And I just got a lovely feeling, a lovely energy from her, and then kind of she fell asleep in Shavasana.
And you woke me up.
And I woke her up. I was like, because I thought, oh, maybe she's fell asleep. I wasn't sure. I was like, because you're always like, is she staying in Shavasana? Do I need to leave her? But then I'm like, is she going to be embarrassed that everyone else is sat up? And then she'd be like, you didn't wake me up. You know, I thought, I'll wake her up. So I just woke her up, shook her shoulder really hard, and then her head. No, I just touched her. and then yeah, we kind of had a little chat after the class, and you told me a little bit about you used to work in this super corporate world, and as soon as we shared what we both did a little bit, and as soon as you said about this corporate world, like my eyes just kind of lit up, because I'd been wanting to do a podcast about the crossover and how is it negotiable, can it work, is there a way to be a yogi and work in the corporate world, or what is going on in the corporate world to make it more compassionate, to make it more feminine, to make it a more inclusive place where people are having better lives and they're not just like a slave to this system in this corporate world. So straight away my eyes just lit up, and then we were chatting, and then we ended up going outside, and it kind of just went from my mind to ask you to be on my podcast. And I was like, the next day, and I'm busy anyway, so it kind of went from my mind. And then I met my friend Bodhi, who's been on the show, who's epic. Like, what a man, what a brave man. He's doing a lot to empower people. Super guy. And I went to a class with him, and I was telling him about you and that we connected. And he was like, I was like, what are you up to now? And he's got, I'm going to meet my friend Charlotte. And he went, I think she might be the girl that you sat next to in class. And I was like, yeah, she's called Charlotte and she's French and she's tall. He was like, yeah, she's good friend of mine. She was on my teacher training for the Jiva Mukti. I was like, shit, man, what? That's mental. And then he went off to meet you for a coffee, and I was just like, I'm gonna drop him a message and just ask you if you'll be on my podcast. And you he gave me your contact details, and we agreed to do it. And so yeah, I'm really blessed to have with me today
Charlotte Kelberine.
I'm really blessed to have with me today Charlotte Kelberine. I'm going to say it with a French accent. Charlotte Kelberine. Hola. No.
Salut.
Salut, Charlotte. How are you?
Oh my God.
Thank you for being on my show. You good?
Yeah. Thank you, Liam, for inviting me on your show. And I love this story, like the fur coat, like the fake fur.
Yeah.
Cruella type of coat. I felt a little awkward coming into class with that coat. But
you looked fantastic.
I left home so late. I picked the first coat, and I was like, doesn't mind, don't mind.
Yeah.
And but it made the trick.
You owned it. You rocked it. That's what it's all
the
about.
coat.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, such a pleasure to be recording this podcast with you.
Yeah, thank you.
And as I was telling you earlier, such an auspicious time today, because it's like full moon. If I let my esoteric self speak, it's full moon today. Full moon in Cancer, which is the sign of transformation,
Yeah.
which is the topic of this podcast.
That's what it's all about. Yeah.
So it's all about transformation. So I couldn't say no.
Yeah.
It was meant to be.
So if it wasn't, would you have been a bit more resistant to?
I don't know. Maybe I would have given it a second thought. Just like a few more days. But here's like from one day to the next. Okay, I will do it. I will do it.
But because you're into the astrology, it was like a firm sign.
A firm
to like
sign from the universe. Just go for it.
yeah, amazing. Well, that's empowering. And why do you know so much about like the astrology and the cosmos and things?
It's just like personal interest. To be honest, as a yoga teacher, obviously there is the asana part that is of interest to me, but also the more energetic aspect of life, of your body, how you are related to others, the universe, and all of this. So I'm not so knowledgeable in astrology, but I follow quite a bit the full moon, the new moon, and I try to build rituals around that, and also to inform how I take decisions in my life based on those insights.
Oh, that's cool.
That's
when you were saying it, then I was like, what are the rituals that you? I was going to ask what the rituals that you kind of live your life by in terms of like following that philosophy.
Okay,
is there specifics
related to astrology or like broad, like
No, related to the moon and astrology.
So I would say, like, first on new moon and full moon, I always take time for myself to sit down, write down, like journaling. And on new moon especially, I think about anything I want to let go of, anything that doesn't really serve me, and kind of burning those things away, like literally burning them away. I write them down on a piece of paper, and then I burn the piece of paper. So it's all about like.
Do you ever burn anything else bigger than just paper?
People. Okay.
Pile them up.
No, that's it for now. Maybe incense as well.
Yeah. You don't ever burn like clothing or.
No. I don't burn clothing.
Just words.
Yeah, I just burn words exactly,
Okay.
And maybe incense and some like herb
Yeah.
But so on new moon, I take that time to think about what I want to let go of, and on full moon, it's more about what new habits or projects I want to initiate, and like planting new seeds. And then I do that every new moon and not every, but like I try to do that most of the time on every new moon and full moon.
And how do you follow it? Like, because I'm like always forgetting that it's a new moon and following it. I'm like, what, do people have it in the diary or a reminder?
Yeah, I have a little kind of card, for 2020 with each month and like the state of the moon by day. And I just have it in my wallet. As you have your credit card, you have your full moon card. Sometimes I swipe the wrong one. I'm like, no,
got rid of the moon, man. Got rid of some moon credits.
I wish.
No, that's like it's cool. I need to remember more, because when I do remember, I bring it into my classes or I bring it into whatever workshop I'm doing. Just allowing people to get rid of stuff. I do it at a solstices. Like usually, if I'm doing a workshop at a solstice, it's like about what you want to let go of and what you want to renew and bring in, and
I think I'm sharing my full moon and new moon practices, but as you just said, like every day, every practice is an opportunity to think about what you want to let go of, what new seeds you want to plant. And
you should be thinking about it every day, really, but it's kind of reaffirming it in them points, isn't it?
Exactly. It's like really setting up some specific time for that. And it is said that full moon and new moon are really potent times, where the energy of the earth is so strong that manifestation is more likely to happen.
So,
if I can say so.
So this one is a full moon.
This one today is full moon.
So is today a place for manifestation then? Is the full moon
exactly.
So it's the full moon's the place for manifestation.
Yeah, it's full moon. It's a place for like thinking about new projects and planting seeds.
Cool.
That you want to water and grow.
Yeah. Awesome. So what are you trying to manifest, or what seeds are you planting at the moment?
That's a good one.
Water and grow.
Well, I recently moved to Barcelona.
That's where we are, guys. We're in Barcelona. I know
Yeah,
it
we're
looks
in
like
Barcelona.
we're in a cave. We are actually in a sort of in a cave, but
It's
we're
too
in a,
sunny outside. We cannot
studio.
show you that.
yes, it's
like in
beautiful.
it's beautiful. Yeah, you will have to bear with my French accent throughout the podcast.
Oh, I'm so happy to have your French accent. Like honestly, French accents just make me melt. Like, first time I went over there, I was just like, everyone was speaking to me. I was like
We're
in
falling
love.
in love with
Just
everyone.
falling in love with it. Even men, I was just like, oh, yeah.
You're
Don't even,
hot.
not even into men, but I'm like, oh,
Sexy.
talk to me. It's like, you just need to fill up your tank there. There's the hose to the petrol. I'm like, oh, I love you.
I love that. So yeah, we are in Barcelona. So I just moved to Barcelona.
Uh-huh.
So everything is brand new, and the choice to move to Barcelona is just a choice out of my heart. You know, like
Mm.
nothing brought me there. So I need to bring every piece of the puzzle together, and I'm planting seeds of first teaching yoga. Like as I was sharing earlier, I'm teaching yoga, so I just want to be able to share the practices that I know in spaces, in studios that resonate with me, that are
Yeah.
aligned with my values, and where students are here to, you know, explore with me themselves. So that's one seed that I'm planting. But another seed that is very dear to my mind. I'm passionate about anything health and wellness. I have something particularly for women's health and mental health.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to plant seeds so that I can reconcile the yogic path in which I am and the corporate path in which I used to be.
Okay.
And seeing how I can bridge the two and see new ways of walking, of managing, that are really taking into account physical health and mental health in the office, making work awesome again, and incorporating practices of mindfulness and emotional intelligence in the workplace. So hopefully sooner than later, great projects will come to life.
Cool.
In that field.
So have those things started? Are you working with some companies already?
Yeah, I'm speaking with a few individuals that are in some way having an impact already in that ecosystem. So, for example, I'm in touch with a wonderful woman that is a mindfulness and emotional intelligence coach, and she's providing trainings for change makers and HR managers and entrepreneurs in mindfulness and emotional intelligence applied to the workplace.
Okay.
I'm in touch with this amazing French guy who is all about how to transform organizations so that they are like centered on human, like for real. Like for real, not just like, oh yeah, on Friday morning we have meditation in the office.
On Friday
and
afternoon we have a drinks
yeah,
trolley.
exactly.
Loads
or
of
like,
gin.
like a great team building where like we drink lots of beers and play ping pong or whatever.
And everyone has sex with each other.
Well, maybe sometimes. Well,
that's what happens at office parties on the printing machine, man. That's what I've seen on the TV.
Okay, I've never seen that, but maybe, you never know where alcohol brings you,
Crazy. So
this guy has ideas as well of like training, like bringing like trainings for same type of people, change makers and leaders into like more human-centered
so it's kind of like
management.
You're kind of going in quite high then with them sort of people. So if you can get them, it'll hopefully filter down.
So I think with that project, it's focusing on like leadership positions or change makers that have somehow a voice in the system that is quite right now, like it's an ecosystem that is quite difficult to navigate. So by changing the mindset of those people, hopefully it can cascade down to the teams and the entire company. But with like the yoga in general, like teaching yoga to, you are like anyone, I feel like you also empower people from different backgrounds and
totally,
to speak up,
Mm-hmm.
change how they think, speak, act in their personal life and work life, and so that on both sides you act.
Yeah. That's what's super powerful about yoga is it allows you to find your voice a lot of the time for the individual, and for them to become empowering people is like, if I can just empower one person in my life, like that's amazing to be the full expression of themselves. And I find through yoga, like a lot of women that go to yoga, they start finding themselves and the true voice, and realizing, some of the relationships that I'm in, I'm being like undermined or I'm being devalued, and yoga is showing them that they've got some value, and that they can have a say in their own life. Like, it sounds really simple, but some people don't think they can have control of their own life. Like, they put it in the hands of other people and pass over the power. And I guess as we come in more into this age of the feminine, which we are in, but we are in the infancy of it, that this is just going to grow and grow and grow, which is like amazing.
I agree. I mean, speaking for myself, I discovered yoga when I was in a really, I would say, difficult time in my life. Like, interestingly, I was somehow thriving, like in terms of my studies. I was like completing master degrees in some of the most prestigious schools in France and New York. But at the same time, I was so burnt out, right, physically and mentally, and I felt like I had no power. I was just like, like really good at what I was doing, but I was not really in tune with the woman I was. I was not really embodying the woman I was. And I found yoga at that time, and I mean, the journey has been long, very long, to reclaim the woman I am and embody the woman I am, and like use that power of the feminine to move through life in a beautiful way. But yoga has been such a transformation in that sense.
To help you
to
force that, to get you to act on that. Coming from the heart place. That's what's the most beautiful thing about the whole yoga movement to me, is exactly what you've just said. But kind of going back to like what you were talking about, you work with kind of trying to get more mindfulness and kind of mental health and wellness into corporations. Where does your passion come from that? Like, I know you used to work in the corporate world. You used to be an engineer, a ballerina, a mathematician, like all these mental things, and in some way they have like a kind of like an oxymoron in a way, aren't they? They don't kind of go together. And are you, by doing what you're doing now with working with corporations, you're trying to bridge that gap? Is that what the aim is?
Yeah, my aim is that, to bridge the gap, or to support individuals move through life with ease, grace, and compassion. But when you look at what you do in life, you spend a lot of time in your walking. And I don't even like to say walking. I would say producing, creating, collaborating, because there is such a strong, I don't know, like so much ideas behind the term walking, right? It's like, it means effort, it means 9 to 5, it means being sitting at the office in front of a computer.
And to me, it means someone's owning you as well, in a way.
And in some way, if you let them own you. But the system is as it is. And so supporting individual in that path. And so with that, you also need to support organizations, really take into account the people they are like, who are contributing to the organization, and so bridging the gap. And I say, like, these days we see a lot of mindfulness at work, right? How many companies are offering yoga or meditation in the office, right? Myself, at that point, at some point, I was working for a company as, a manager, like an employee, and I was so willing to change from the inside the company that I would also teach yoga once a week to my colleagues, to my managers, to my managers. That was quite interesting. So there is a strong movement towards that, like meditation in the office and yoga on a chair, in your office chair. But I think it's more than that. It's like bridging the gap by really changing the way we see how we work. It's like the future of work, right? It's like being more like the management being more democratic, the management being more compassionate, giving a voice to everyone, rethinking this idea of hours, right? Does it like to be a productive employee? Do you need to be in front of your computer from 9 to 5, and then have like a strong division between your working life and your personal life, right? Or can we mix that a little bit more? Like there is this guy, I really enjoy listening to him. His name is Ricardo Semler. He's a Brazilian CEO, and he's like also the creator of the Semco Institute. And basically, he was sharing that at some point in his life, he imagined that someone would tell him that he has cancer and that he had 6 months left to live, right? And so he thought, well, if that was the case, okay, what would I do? I would, I don't know, go to the Himalayas, hike, fly, blah, 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 all sorts of like crazy adventures, everything I didn't have the time to do when I was walking. But none of the ideas were like, well, I would love to go to work, right? No, work was not part of like the plan for the next 6 months. So he said, like, that's kind of sad that you are not excited to go to work every day, right? So we need to make work awesome again in some way. And so he decided to make Mondays and Thursdays what he called his terminal days.
Okay.
And like it's quite interesting. It's quite like extreme in the way, in a way to imagine that Mondays and Thursdays are your terminal days, and so you plan the days accordingly. Meaning maybe you would go to work 2 hours and then go to the cinema and do whatever. But on a regular working day, like Monday or Thursday, not holiday, not Sunday, not Saturday, which I think is quite revolutionary, right? You learn how to open your computer on a Sunday night to get some work done for the next week, but you don't learn to take some time off your regular weekday
So
to do something more, something that fulfills you. Exactly, that is simple and fulfills you. Like. So
but and even in England, the British culture is totally different. Like we don't, at least in France and Spain and even like Central America, South America, Portugal, people have lunch. People sit down and have lunch, man. Like in America and in Britain, we don't even do that. Like it's part of your culture. So we don't even get that in our cultures. It's like most people have a sandwich at the desk. It's like it's revolting, man. It's just like so unhealthy.
The lunch topic, as in honestly, like you're like, it's so simple, like or such as like obvious or simple or whatever, like something that you observe that is like, oh, it's lunch, the lunch topic. Like you don't you grab a sandwich in front of your computer. For me, it was such a difficult aspect of my work to grasp. Right. I was working in the US. So definitely.
Have you come from working in? Have you been working in Europe and France where things were different at first?
I work in France. I work in London, in Norway, in the US, and now in Barcelona. So I've seen different corporate culture and the lunch thing. Whoa, man! Like especially, I used to be anorexic at some point, which was quite a dark time of my life. So eating was not. My relationship to eating was not so easy, right? To say the least. And I remember working in London in a finance-related job, in mergers and acquisition, actually, and being like, okay, I'm going to have a break and, grab something healthy to eat to get back on, like, good, healthy eating habits. And my colleagues would, like, just jam down a sandwich in front of the computer, like swallow it, not even thinking exactly, and blame me for maybe taking 20 minutes of nothing, just like eating mindfully. But this was just the beginning of my lunch story, because then moving to the US, it was the same. Working for a consulting firm, definitely the lunch break was not a priority. So as a French, as a former anorexic, as a yogi, I was like, holy shit.
This is killing me,
This is killing me.
And killing people,
Like this is killing me. Like you cannot like eat and walk. Like sometimes you have to, you know, it's not, doesn't have to be, it cannot be the default situation of like swallowing in one bite your sandwich in front of the computer. And that's so simple, but just that, you don't see that happening. Like you don't see a positive change happening everywhere in the corporate world. Like there is still
and with the times that people work as well, like in London especially, like girlfriends I had worked in you know, kind of corporate world, and it was sort of you were contracted in for 8 hours as you know, as part of your salary, but you was expected to work minimum 9, minimum. Do you know what I mean? Like, and like usually 10. So you were like not getting home till 7:30. So most nights, and then by the time you had something to eat, it's time to go to bed. And I was like looking at people going, "You want to do this as your life?" It's pretty sucks, man.
Ordering in the office is like happening many times.
All the time
in many jobs. Unfortunately. And you know the tricky part, like the vicious part, I think, is like because you spend so much time at work, not really taking care of yourself, like truly, or carving out time for like developing a healthy social life, then you end up like in this vicious circle of working more, eating at work, working more, and then there is no one to go back home to share dinner with. But then when you have when you're fortunate to have maybe a girlfriend or a boyfriend, and you're like, well, I would love to go home and have dinner with him or her, and the rest of the team is not in that situation, then you're like facing again like a gap, right? And like no, you eat here and you go home after, and this whole thing, and then the kids, and like I mean we can go on forever.
So did you have any like any kind of anything positive happen from that? Was it just an observation, or was you starting to kind of try and bring changes of practices into the workplace?
I think, well, right now, I've been pointing.
It's like, I'm French, man. I need fucking lunch for 2 hours. 3-course lunch.
I think, okay, so definitely all those observations were and are still holding true in many companies, I guess. And in my case, I'm quite audacious, we say. I'm kind of bold in some way, where I'm like, I have these beliefs and values, and I'm just going to roll with it. And you take it or you leave it. Not just as a, like bold person trying to like break the system, but also as a way to show people that there is a different way, right? So to inspire them maybe to change a little bit. So by doing it, people see it. Maybe at the beginning they are like intrigued, they don't like it or whatever, but then slowly they start to maybe understand
and ask you questions
and mimic.
What's that? What are you eating?
Exactly, like all those things. So from very simple things like to bringing your own lunch at work with your reusable Tupperware instead, and your cutleries, instead of buying something in a plastic box with plastic cutleries that you then throw in a random bin instead of throwing it in maybe in a recycling bin. Like simple things like that, to like saying, well, listen, I want to do something for others, and to dedicate some time within the week to a project that will serve others. And so, for example, in my case, I decided to teach yoga in prisons when I was in New York. And so I said, I'm going to take 2 hours of my Friday to go to prison and to teach yoga. And again, at the beginning, it was like, well, it's Friday morning, you have work, blah, blah, blah. You need to be there for your team, for the work. So it was a little bit of a negotiation situation at the beginning. But then I said, well, I'm going to do it anyway. And then slowly but surely people ask you questions. Oh, what do you do on what are you not in the office on Friday morning? Well, I'm doing this and that. Oh, really? That's great. Oh, I should do that too. I have ideas. I have this project. And
It empowers people. Yeah.
also to act. I think oftentimes we don't dare to ask, or we don't dare to do something because we are so used to what we have been told was right, education, the system, that's how you should behave, that's how work works, and so on and so forth.
But it's weird because it is the employees that should hold the power in them environments. You're creating more value for that person than they are for you. Because it's usually you're creating at least double the value that they're paying you, minimum, usually. And it's like, well, you should be the one that's holding the power. And people that are empowered should be able to say them things, because if you're empowered, you can get another job.
Yeah, I think sometimes you maybe first there is a lot of pressure from maybe leadership to get things done, and there is always more to be done, right? We're always chasing more. It's like there is more to be done, more to be earned, like more profits, more time, more. So there is always more, and you can stay in the office more and more and more to get those more and more done. So there is this pressure. It requires the ability to say no, which we do not all have. There is also, again, like just limiting beliefs that we have inherited from parents and schools, and it's hard to transcend those beliefs or to change them, right?
Change the story, it's really difficult,
unless you're shown a different way. And even when you're shown a different way, it takes time to understand that, that's actually a possibility, another reality for me, and I can act according to that new reality. So, everyone is on its own journey. And even though we say, employee can be empowered, and takes time, like it's a system. It takes time for every individual to feel like they have the choice to live a different reality. And even though they are employees of a bigger company, well, they have a voice, and they can change the system from the inside out, from the bottom up, whatever.
That's where is that when the actual kind of CEOs of the company start to panic then?
It's like when my former
like
boss
factory,
is like,
the factory owner, isn't it? Like, a strike. He's like, well, we need to. How do we control these people? They want change.
It's like, if all my managers from the past are listening to me right now, I bow to you for being my greatest teachers in this life.
I just find it like you're talking to me about this kind of corporate world, and I'm kind of finding myself laughing inside, because I just see you kind of like a child like me in a way, and you've worked in these kind of big corporate places. How did it end up happening? What's the story like? I know you were as a ballerina and a mathematician. Is that when you was really young, or what? Talk to me.
Talk to you. I like when you say I'm like a little child sometimes. No, but like, just like a side note, but like, I think that's also why at some point I was struggling, because I felt like I didn't really fit or belong in that way of behaving within those corporations, right? Maybe in a different way, but like in that ecosystem, there was too many differences, and I'm like maybe innocent, or I have so much hope that I come in with like bright eyes and plenty of ideas of like changing the world. But anyway, I ended up in this. So how did I end up working for those big names? I was really good at when I was a teenager, like from 5 years old until maybe 16. So the full primary school, high school. I was following a special program. I was a ballerina at the opera. So, and I was also going at school, but like going at school in the morning only, and going to the dance school in the afternoon, and then the rest of the week, like the weekends. So it was a very disciplined schedule, and I was good. I was good at school. Like, at least in France, I was good at school overall. I was good at mathematics, numbers, critical thinking, French. I was a good student. And so I was also a decent ballerina. And when I got my baccalaureate, which is the high school degree
Yeah, yeah.
in France, I had to choose, okay, what do I do? Do I pursue this ballerina path and become an artist? Or like, yeah, like, performing on stages and like, the dream life, right? Or do I go into university or any other like higher education schools and get a more
Real job.
a real job. I was just going to avoid that, but like a real job, that's kind of the thing.
Charlotte, you need to get a real job.
Yeah, that was a little bit that. It was more stable. You would earn money, and then you could raise kids, and then
Yeah.
you can still dance on the side as a hobby.
Yeah.
You cannot become a ballerina and do mathematics as a hobby. Really, like it doesn't really work that way.
I'm just going
Okay.
to this mathematics class for an
Yeah,
hour.
yeah, and I will be back. Yeah, so much fun today, like learning. Yeah. So I choose to kind of build upon my good grades, and I went to first engineering school in France, and then it's like a specific like type of education in France. I will just fast forward and then move to the US to do another degree at Columbia University. So I was in pretty prestigious universities, and I can say that my academic path is pretty high level. I don't know, like prestigious, yeah. And I was good at it. If I think objectively now, I don't think I really liked it, although I was good at it.
But you could do it, yeah.
But I could do it, right?
Yeah.
And it was, according to parents and society, it was the right path to get a real job, and that was what I was meant to be because I was good at school. So. And then, so after university and all of this, I got hired. I did like different internships in big companies, and
in New York.
So I did internships in London, in Norway, and then got hired at some point in New York for a consulting firm, and I worked there for 2 years.
What's a consulting firm? What does just consulting?
So,
what is it?
Consulting firm. So basically, we have clients in many different industries that have some sort of a problem to solve, and across different functions. So it can be a client in the pharmaceutical industry with a strategy question, and we come in as external consultant to bring an objective view on it and try to bring solutions as well. So to simplify. So because I was really good at numbers, I was directly put into the financial industry, advising banks with mostly male colleagues.
Working with the devil.
Exactly. Yeah, that was kind of, I'm sorry to say, but for me, that was the feeling. That was like the feeling that I was not at the right place. And during those 2 years, I thought, okay, instead of quitting the firm, as I was saying, like, I could maybe work for a client in another industry. So I was really passionate already at that time about health and wellness. So I was like, maybe I should try to have projects in the life science or like pharmaceutical space, or, something that is closer to health and wellness. But it was like, I was really hard to redirect within the firm. So after 2 years, I couldn't really, like, I think the story is just that the more you do yoga, the more you understand that whatever you wish for yourself. So the yoga philosophy teaches you that whatever you wish for yourself in this life, you must be able to provide it to others first. And so when you start to integrate that into your life, you start questioning all aspects of your life, and including your job. And so you wake up in the morning and you think, okay, what am I going to spend my day doing? Advising banks on some financial products or whatever. And you look at yourself and like, is it what I want for myself? More, I don't know, money or like prestige. I don't know exactly what you are actually providing through that
Yeah.
type of work, but like, and you're like, no, it's not what I want for myself. So I'm not going to do that I'm not going to keep going like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like after the consulting firm, I work for e-commerce doing marketing.
Yeah.
And man, I'm the first person to unsubscribe from all newsletters.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have Instagram or Facebook on my phone. I hate push notifications.
Oh.
And I was
Yeah.
literally working, like managing a team that was doing all of that to sell the product that we were selling.
Mm.
And you're like, and you think again, like, what I wish for myself, I must be able to provide it to others first. And what I'm doing every day, I'm going to work and I'm like sending those massive emails, making sure that all consumers get those push notifications. And when I do myself receive them as a consumer, I hate that. I hate that. I want to just like smash my phone on the floor. And so slowly
turn off the push notifications, kids.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as you get your phone, turn that shit off. Like, why do you need to know that someone's like you've gotten 150,000 likes on something and you've got a ding every time, ding, ding. It's like,
it's like
oh my
driving
God.
for me. It's driving me crazy. So at some point, it was so not aligned with who I am and how I aspire to move through life.
Yeah.
I couldn't ignore anymore. Like I couldn't say, yeah, it's fine. I go to work, I do that, I bother consumers, and then I go home and I am this other Charlotte, right? So you start to like see where things are not aligned with who you are, where you want to, what you want to become, and slowly you make your way out. And I think you make your way out because you need to explore extremes to be able to find the gray zone, right? The in between. So I'm not saying you have to be either a yogi or a businessman, and the two are not compatible or negotiable. But I think when you're a businessman and you're also at some point you start the yogic path, it's hard to reconcile all of this. So you quit, you go full on the yogic path, and then find the gray zone. Find how to reconcile, because at the end of the day we'll all have a bill to pay at the end of the month, so all sort of expenses. So breathing in a cave in the Himalayas is not the only option.
Yeah, but whatever we're earning, we can live off. Somehow you make it work.
And I think again, also like going with like building upon that, you also start to question how you consume and what you're chasing. And instead of chasing wealth and fame, you realize that and going through like with the scarcity mindset, like I'm lacking this, I need more of that. Like the yogic philosophy also teaches you to see everything you already have, to spread your awareness to what you have, and to find contentment. And so with that you also reduce your needs. And so so when you reduce your needs, and you also don't need so much like wealth and money maybe to go through life. So
and you don't want as much poison in your body, and poison's quite expensive. Do you know what I mean? Like friends of mine spend like maybe a third of their wages on alcohol. And other crap and bad food, and we spend so much money on stuff that's bad for us.
Totally. Yeah, when you change your diet and lifestyle.
But I find like for everyone who's listening, like Charlotte has done her Jiva Mukti training, and Jiva Mukti's like had a massive impact on my life. But and I found from that specific practice, just like my taste just changed, like my actual physical, like how I tasted things changed. Like I was like, I don't like the taste of that anymore. Like eggs was just like, ugh. Then I realised it was a chicken's period, and I was like, why are they eating chicken period, man? Why should I be eating that shit? That's weird, isn't it? Like, imagine we tell like kids in 100 years that we used to be eating chicken period, they'd be like, you guys were fucked up.
Yeah.
Like, we were.
We were a little bit, but
But yeah, just especially for me, the Jiva Mukti, as these changes that have happened during that practice or changes that have happened, and I'm directly correlate them to that specific practice, which is like for me is super powerful and super like grateful for what they've done with that method of yoga and how they developed it, and the the energy behind it is to me it's really pure.
I agree. Like Jivamukti, such a beautiful method. That's how I got introduced to yoga actually 10 years ago, and it has been my home practice for as long as I've been practicing yoga. And to your point, I think what is really beautiful and transformative about this practice, it's that doesn't only talk about the asana and look at the asana as a physical form of exercise, but it includes some principles of living, like, ahimsa, non-violence. And, you think, oh, non-violence towards myself and towards others, what does that mean? How do I treat myself every day? What I consume, what I eat, how I move, how I speak, how do I treat others, human and non-humans? Then you come back to this, like, what am I eating and where does it come from? But also, like, what is beautiful in Jivamukti is that they look at the Yoga Sutras, like the teachings of yoga that we have, that exist since like years, millions, and like very old, and they look at them with a contemporary eye, trying to relate or bridging them with what the challenges of today, right? And when you say, after when you start practicing Jivamukti, you started to taste differently food and everything. I think maybe it's Jivamukti, maybe it's yoga overall, but like your awareness increases, right? You become so much more aware of your physical body and of your emotional body, and you become much more mindful that things start to change. Like you really observe, you really sense what's happening. When you encounter people, when you eat something, and then it's another reality that opens to you. And
and I think that's what when I first started getting into yoga, I was doing all these different styles, and all the styles that had come over from India, but it was kind of like they'd been diluted into just asana. And when I found Jivamukti, I was like, oh right, this is like, it's really, really traditional and really, really strict, but then really, really cool, really, really flexible, and really, really creative. And you're like, wow, that's kind of like how you want to bring up your child, innit? You know what I mean? Like, they need boundaries, they need to know what right and wrong is, but you need to give them the freedom to develop into the butterfly that they're supposed to be. And for me, as soon as I found Jivamukti, I was like, what is this? Like, I was like listening to like banging music in a yoga class, and I was like, and even though I'm not a Jivamukti teacher, like, I feel like I am, like, in in a lot of the ways. And if Jivamukti people are listening, I'm really open to a scholarship if you want to come and train.
I love it. Take him.
I'll be really good for you.
I think you have a point here. Like, I've explored, so I am a Jivamukti teacher. I'm also a Kundalini yoga teacher, and I've explored different styles. And I love practicing Iyengar. I've practiced Ashtanga for a while. I mean, I love exploring, and I love feeding my practice and my teaching with different styles. But I think I always come back to Jivamukti because for me it feels complete. Like, as you said, there are boundaries, there are like a certain rigidity about the method that is very true to the teachings of yoga that we inherited from India, but at the same time so much creativity and so much it's like Rocky, like playing like great music in class, but not just music as a background sound, like choosing your music with purpose, and so that you serve the sequence and the experience
totally.
of the student.
I choreographed the
It's
music to the sequence.
For me, was as a former dancer, as a lover of music, and dancing on the stage and on the dance floor. I was like, this is so cool. Like, and even like the sequencing, like if I take the example of Ashtanga, they have like series A, B, or 1, 2, and it's like a fixed series. In Jivamukti, we have principles and a framework to build the class, but then the rest of the class is up to you. It's up to your
It's like
creativity.
certain postures, like
Yeah,
you know,
you have to go
you
through
have to have a
certain
twist
postures.
in there, and
But then how to go from one to the other
Yeah,
and to
yeah,
make
yeah.
them all together into a class, it's up to you as a teacher. Imagine the amount of freedom and creativity that you have within those boundaries.
Yeah, totally.
It's like so nice, so
Yeah.
nice.
And that's what I love about being in some people's classes. They'll put me in a posture, and then I'm like, oh, I know another posture that would flow really beautifully from that posture. And they're not doing it, but I'm like, I'm going to do that when I get home, and I'm going to put that in one of my classes, because it felt like I should go into
Feels
that
good.
position from there, you know what I mean? And I'm like, and you just start creating through that and get inspired by people, which is, and I've been inspired, like the yoga in Barcelona is next level. Like
you like it.
I've been like totally blown away by it, totally blown away by the style of teachers, and you know, obviously the Jivamukti, like the people are just insane there. Like Olga's studio is beautiful, and if anyone gets a chance to go to Barcelona, go and check Olga out, and go and Karina as well. There's some all the
Maria,
teachers there.
Rebecca.
All the teachers are.
Bodhi, all the teachers are great.
You got to mention Bodhi.
I got to mention Bodhi.
We got you in, bruv. Yeah, man. So the Jivamukti started in New York, whilst you was still in your corporate job.
Oh, it started before.
It started before the corporate job in New York.
When
you went to study there.
No, it started in Norway.
Okay.
I was starting a long time. I was studying, and at that time I was completing my first master degree in France, and I took a gap year to do some internships to get some professional experience. So I moved to Norway.
Is it Stalingrad, where the studio is? Is it
Stavanger?
Stavanger. Is that where you lived?
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Such a coincidence.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, like there is no. It's such a coincidence.
I'd never even heard of Stavanger till the other day, and there was a girl called Ingrid who was
from there.
She was from there,
Yeah. Camilla is the owner of the Jivamukti studio in Stavanger. And so I moved to Norway to work for an oil and gas company. No comment. And I was alone. I was working for that.
I'm sorry. Every time you say something that's like really adult, it makes me laugh. I was working for the oil and gas company.
Yeah. You know,
Sorry,
building petroleum wells and all of this. So I was working for a petroleum company, and I was getting out of a breakup as well. I was anorexic. I mean, all good things, right? Good cocktail.
You had it all going on, like, you know.
I was like, great.
Yeah.
And so I was not dancing anymore because I had an injury, and I was just at that point just looking for another form of physical activity. So I went to that gym, and I looked through the window, and I was like, whoa, that looks interesting. It looks like a little bit like dance, but not really. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
It's called yoga. Okay, well, let me try it. So I tried that class, and it happened that the teacher was a former ballerina too.
Okay.
So something kind of resonated, right? And that was not a Jivamukti class. That one class was not a Jivamukti class. But then at the end of the class, she told me, like, go to that center and try those classes.
Right.
And she was talking about the Jivamukti center. And so I started practicing Jivamukti in Norway. And I'm very quickly after I moved to London for another internship, working for a bank.
Oh, I thought it was going to be an arms dealer.
No,
it's like
no,
next,
no,
I was
no.
working for an arms dealer next.
No, for a bank.
Well, worse.
Well, wait for it. Not only for a bank, but for the mergers and acquisition team in the oil and gas industry.
Oh, beautiful.
So, you know, adding on.
Yeah, love and light.
Adding on. And so I immediately went to the Jivamukti Center in London, and I took my first class with Kat.
Yep.
Kat Alip Douglas. Such a wonderful teacher. And that first class, I think, was sparked the transformation, like literally, because I remember Kat's first the sequence was like I was going from one pose to the other, and I wanted to cry every time something was happening, like some physical and emotional release in some way. I don't know how to explain it, and I just remember crying through the class. And also she, at the beginning of the class, she gave a talk, a Dharma talk. That's how we do in Jivamukti. We gave some Dharma talks during classes. And she basically quoting a verse from the Yoga Sutra that was translated as, you are not your body and you are not your mind. And the Sangha, or the people you hang out with, are here to support you in your growth, right? And in your path to realization, to self-realization, and realizing that you are this one consciousness and connected with everyone else. And so, from someone who is suffering from anorexia, hearing you are not your body, you are not your mind, it's like, what is she talking about? Like, oh, interesting. So I'm like putting so much pressure on my body, and my mind is so fucked up. Like there is something to explore here. And also saying that your Sangha, the people you are hanging out with, like, should be like-minded people helping you into your towards growth. And you're like, well, I go to work, I don't really like my colleagues, like, not that I don't like them, but they are not supporting me in the way I want, where I want to go. And that was like haha moment, like a glimpse of like the power of yoga, and the feeling that through the practice I was literally hugged by life. Like this tap of life.
Wake up.
Wake up. Wake up. And then from there, moving on, and then I moved to New York. And
So I've got two questions, but I don't know which one to ask first. The anorexia, do you feel that it started to heal through the yoga, or was there something else?
It was through the yoga.
It was definitely through the yoga.
100%.
Okay, awesome. And we'll come into that in a second. But when did the anorexia start? When, and what was going through your mind with that illness?
Yeah. I think it was very related to the pressure I was kind of exposed to at school and in my career choices in some way, like striving to be like.
So it wasn't specifically the ballerina thing, because
No, it was not at all developed during my ballerina years. That's quite interesting. It was developed like I started to behave like that, or to feel like that. I don't know exactly how to state it, like, but to suffer from those, like, from this let's say mental illness or disorder, eating disorders, when I was actually at university, and like thriving to be like the best student, and like to get into those jobs very male dominated, and to stand out, and to like thriving to control everything and to thrive, and then the first thing you can control is obviously food. And then there is like, it's tricky because then it becomes a way to cope with emotions. But that turns into really bad way of treating yourself. So and speaking of the feminine rising versus this very young society we live in, I think I was also at that time very unsure about where I was standing. Like I was doing engineering school, mostly guys. I was getting into jobs where my teammates were mostly guys, and all the mindsets and the behaviors were like male.
You're gonna it's gonna have a impact on you if that's what you're spending.
So you get like, so then I don't know, you kind of I think for me at some point it was a little bit, how do you say that, like asexualizing,
asexualizing.
Like, like you feel like you cannot really be a woman in that space. So by under eating, you don't have any shapes, right? You're like this like individual.
Pencil.
Exactly. You're not really a woman. You're like doing your
But
thing.
maybe do you feel like in some ways it was like a defense thing from being sexualized in them environments as well, because it's so male dominated. It's a very like sexually, you know, what's the word? Testosterone filled thing. And if you're a woman there, voluptuous and curves, you're gonna be
maybe
treated
there is for sure a layer of that in the reason why I developed those eating disorders of like trying to hide or to not own really the body I was in, right? So as I was saying at some point, like it took me a long time to really truly love my body and love the fact that I am a woman and to embody the woman I am. And it's not just like, obviously there is the physical aspect, so how to treat your body and to accept that you're a woman, you have forms, you have breasts, you are like you're different from a man, right? You have also emotions, right? You are a little bit like the moon. You're like
men need to be trained in that, like what women have to deal with on a daily basis, man, like emotionally. And I've been getting a lot of teachings from my tantra. Like I'm in a man's group and we're learning about like, I'm like, why do they not teach you that at school? Like, you know.
But that again, that comes into like you hit a little bit the wall when you are like truly owning that part of yourself as a woman and evolving in a very male dominated, for example, corporation. Because there is no place for your fucking women emotions, right? Or you don't like, if you show up a little bit too, you know, as a woman, like, oh, maybe you're like sexy and it's not appropriate or whatever, you know, like it's really subtle to find the sweet spot of how to,
because you're working in a masculine environment and a masculine energy of emotion from like 16 to 80 is pretty much like that. And then a woman whose emotions going like that every day
crazy,
is trying to come into an environment. It's like, you know. And then you've got periods on top of that.
So like you want to go to it's like on top of that.
Like even women, you know, women who are staying in the office till they're like 7-8 months pregnant, and you're just like,
go
how
home.
does that work? How does it, like, surely you've got some mad shit going on, like you just need to be sat in a room on your own like some days.
But you know, with the pregnancy thing, I don't have kids yet, but like I see friends around me, like the pregnancy situation, like, well, you know, how many times, well, in the past at least, you know, you would go for an interview to get a job and you would know that you would be, I don't know, 2 months pregnant, but you don't say it because, you know you will not get the job because there is so much like stigma around, oh, if you're pregnant, you will leave, blah, blah, blah. And same if you're pregnant, like when I was in the consulting firm, working for that consulting firm, most of the women partner, so the top positions, they were, I don't know, in their like 30, 35, no kids yet, because they couldn't like in some way have kids and pursue that career to reach that point. So they needed to like go get there to then maybe think about, I can afford to have kids now and to like maybe step back or like how
because that male dominated industry, it kind of it's defeminizing women. You know, it's like, it's all good for women to have equal rights and equal pay and you know, for equal amounts of work, but to then be stripped away from, like, you were going to have to sacrifice being a mother, which is like surely like the most feminine thing that you can do. And you know, we can't be equal in that world because it's not possible. And
no, but I think I just want to say that I totally agree with you, because at some point in my life I thought, okay, am I a feminist? Like women's right and we are totally equal and same wage. Like, yes, in some aspects of life there needs to be same, right? Equality. Because the reason why the equality didn't exist was not really that didn't really make sense, right? But in some way we are different, so we cannot be equal through everything and all aspects of life, right? We are different. You're a man,
totally,
you're a woman, and we need to go and flow with that and to own that and to accept that and to know the specificities of each each and
And roles. It's like when you have a baby with like if you have a baby, whatever,
Yeah.
you can't go, well, sorry, husband, you're gonna have to breastfeed tonight. It's like, well, you know what I mean? It's just it is mad. I think it's got to a stage where, in some industries, it's like, I can't, I can't have a baby. That would be, no, I'm a feminist. Why should I have to have a baby? You know what I mean? You don't have to have a baby.
You don't have to
You
have.
don't have to have one at all. But you don't have to not have one because of your career. Do you know what I mean? Because of an industry that you're in. It's that balance, isn't it? Of we're
But I
coming
think
into
it's
the age
part-
of the
yeah.
feminine,
Yeah.
but do women have to succeed in a masculine based work format? Like the culture it's a masculine format, isn't it?
Yeah. But I think, and it's totally related to the topic of like how to reconcile like the corporate world and the ecosystem that is like masculine and with like more like subtle mindful ways of being. So it's totally relevant.
Yeah. So what do you see as like the positive things that are going on in that world at the moment? Like obviously what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve in bridging that gap with mindfulness, wellness, health and well-being. But is there stuff you see are you still connected with that world in any way?
Yeah. I have friends and I'm still connected with that world in some way. Positive things that I see, well, I see more and more initiatives to bring mindfulness into the office. I see some big companies like Google, for example, putting together trainings in mindfulness and emotional intelligence for team leaders and CEOs so they can lead with more compassion.
Yeah.
I see other institutes putting together also trainings for leaders and change makers to build companies that revolve around the people, the way of building the P&L around the people, the way of managing that gives a voice to the employee, so that the leaders are not selected from the top, but they are really like almost like you elect a president.
Oh no, that's dangerous.
It's dangerous, right? I was hesitating saying that. I also see, like startups doing really cool things. Like I was sharing this Friday story, right? When I was going for 2 hours to teach yoga in prison, and it was like a little hectic to get that to be accepted. And I see now companies, one actually a French company, a French startup is called Vendredi, so which means Friday. The name of the company is Friday, and it's actually attempting to fill that gap, to connect or to connect employees with maybe NGOs or under-resourced communities, so that the employees can share their skills and take time off their official contractual work time to do good, right? And negotiating with the company the employees are working in to let them do that, right? So it's kind of creating
they can choose their own project.
Exactly. And maybe spend a Friday or a Wednesday or 2 Friday, 2 days a week, whatever. Like, so this I think is really cool. And you also see this movement of like remote workers and co-working spaces. And
that's really like huge now.
It's huge. And actually what I really love about it is that when you look at some really cutting edge co-working spaces, they obviously offer a space to work, but they also offer like amazing wellness programming, amazing like kind of workshops to get new tools into maybe business tools, but also tools that are more focused on mindfulness and emotional intelligence. So you see that through those new co-working spaces, you create a new community of young entrepreneurs maybe that will be equipped with different ways, with different tools and different ways of working and of building teams and companies, and I think this is really cool.
Yeah, and is that like, what would you know? Because like I have like a utopian like view on what would be the best thing for society, and in my head it's kind of like for everyone to be freelance, like everyone's freelance. You know, people come to them to work. And everyone's working for each other, because then you're the boss. You pick and choose when you want to work, how you adapt your week. You plan everything, and that's kind of, I don't know. Yeah, that's my utopian vision of people working.
If I tell you my utopian vision is, I think it's going even further in a way where there is something within me that says that I would love to see just like bartering of skills. Where we all like maybe live in reduced communities, like smaller size, and barter skills, and so we create a society that is working thanks to that bartering and that exchange of skills in a very organic way. That is like very
and it's it's kind of like the value that's given to some jobs and not given to others. Like a plumber only earns this much, but like an accountant earns this much, or like a professional hockey player. I don't even think there's such a thing as a professional hockey player. But it doesn't particularly. You're not going to earn a good living from that unless you're probably the biggest superstar hockey, field hockey player in the world. You might get a decent sponsorship, whereas a footballer who's probably training just as hard as you, earns in a day what you would earn in your whole career.
I really love hearing that point of view, because I feel like there is an idea that a proper work, proper job is like sitting at the office, within an office, behind a computer, and that's like a job where you come across as intelligent, as skilled. Jobs where it's more like manual, or that involve the physical movement, like I don't know, hockey player or a plumber. There is less value, I feel, that people see in these jobs. And for me, in my transformation, I remember like when I quit the corporate world to dedicate myself to yoga fully at some point. At the beginning I was very, not frustrated, but like shaken by the idea that before, when I was telling people what I was doing, I'm like working for this company, and like I would get like this look, this gaze of like validation, and that I'll come across as very intelligent, and like I'm doing good, like, and wow. And when I started to say
then in the yoga world going
when I started to say, for example, I am a yoga teacher,
yeah,
I would get maybe disinterested looks, like, or like question like, oh yeah, great, but what do you do for a living? What's your job? Well, I am a yoga teacher, like there is this idea that a job is like effortful at the computer, and maybe yoga is like, it's like, it's good, like it's nice, but is that the real job? Or maybe you're not so intelligent if you're teaching yoga. That doesn't make like any sense.
And I guess in some countries, like if you were a world-class footballer and you went to some countries where football's not a thing, and they asked you, what do you do? And you were like a footballer, they'd probably go, okay, but what is your real job?
Is your real job?
And I love being in India. They go, what is your good name? I'm like, Liam. And they go, what is your profession? I'm like, oh shit, what's my profession? What shall I say?
True. What do I say right now?
I'm like, oh, I'm an actor, or I'll say like I'm a painter or something, and then they'll be like, okay, what is your mother's profession? She's a secretary. What is your father's profession? He's a womanizer. They're like, what you have a wife? I'm like, no. Oh, how many girlfriends you have?
So funny.
But yeah, it's just that perception, isn't it? And I struggle with that. Yeah, when people ask me what do I do, it's a difficult one, because I do lots of stuff.
Same.
I try and have a good time most of the time. Yeah.
And that's a tough question, right? What do I do? What
Yeah,
do
yeah.
you do? Like, I used to answer, I am this, like a label,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I am a consultant. Today, I prefer to answer like I'm passionate about this. I'm trying to achieve this.
Yeah, yeah.
And we do many things. I think not our generation is like that. More like multi-project
Polymath.
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 Okay,
It's the word, isn't it? It's where you're like good at a number of things. You don't just like.
Yeah,
I think is that the word? Polymath.
I don't know.
Yeah, we'll look that up after the
Okay,
show.
I will look.
But yeah, that's
You
a
are
good,
the English person.
Yeah, I'm the
just
English
the Frenchy.
person. Yeah, but I'm dyslexic. I've got a disability. I get like a special parking space and things.
Yo.
No, I don't get it. It is classed as a disability though, but I don't get the parking. Imagine, bugger. It'd be so good if I got the parking. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's like so unpolitically correct.
Yeah, but if you got a sticker, you'd be
Yeah,
like, okay.
yeah. Got the
They
sticker,
assess-
got the parking space.
They assessed
Sorry.
me, and
Yeah.
don't have to walk as far. Especially in
of course.
England, like if you park the other side of a supermarket and it's raining, you're gonna be wet by the time you get in there, man. But let me delve before we like kind of wrap the show up. Just want to delve a little bit more into like the actual transformation, the when it kind of struck you that it was transforming, when the anorexia started to kind of like be healed. When did that happen? Did you know a specific like moment, or was it over a period of time?
I would say it was over a period of time where I would observe changes, little by little insights, little awakening, if I can say so. But also there was this one project, I think, when I was a consultant and I was traveling to the client site to accomplish the mission, to get the project done, basically. And one project, I was traveling to Salt Lake City, so kind of not even to Salt Lake City, to the suburb of Salt Lake City, so in a no man's land zone. And I would wake up, go to that clients, eat at the cafeteria where only, I don't know, like really non-healthy food was available. And I was alone in my hotel room, and at that time I was like traveling every Monday through Thursday, going back to New York on the weekend to see my boyfriend. And I remember I was traveling with my yoga mat. There is no one morning of that project where I would not unfold my yoga mat to practice asana and to meditate to keep my sanity. At that time, the food there was so bad that I was juicing. Like literally, I was juicing. So I lost a couple of kilos. And I was traveling extensively and I was exhausted and my eyes were like I was like just exhausted. And one day I came back home to my home in New York, and my boyfriend looked at me and he was like, look at you. He didn't even say hi. He looked at me, he was like, look at you. What the fuck are they doing to you? Like literally. And what are you doing to yourself? Like, look at you. You look like, I'm going to say a piece of shit. That was not really nice, but that was
Hey,
quite,
honey,
quite
welcome
like
home. You look like shit.
no, but literally that was
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But that was intense, like, and it was like, if you don't quit, I'm quitting for you. I'm calling them and I'm quitting for you. And it brought me back to the yoga teaching, that it teaches us to take full responsibility over our lives, right? So I felt I was living two lives, and I was kind of bouncing between the two and kind of blaming the corporate life and finding maybe bliss in the yogic life. But it was not really working. And that day, like that discussion, that tough conversation I had with my boyfriend was really a wake-up call. And I was like, yeah, I think he's right. And right now I need to really speak up or do something for myself first. And from that day, a lot of things happened. Like, decided to quit. I was already like doing teacher trainings before and teaching a little bit, but like it was really like the day I decided to quit, just to create space and emptiness for me to see through and think about, okay, what I want to do next, or where I want to go from there, and how do I want to navigate life with all those tools without being like a victim of something, right? Of a system. How do I want to take responsibility?
Yeah, you created it.
Yeah.
You've got the Viking, create your reality thing on. I'm gonna get that on my thumbs.
So you got it?
Yeah, I will. I've been meaning to get it for a while.
Yeah.
I'll get around to. I noticed it the other day. You've got it. I was like, oh, cool. It's interesting because I'm gonna get it. I've been meaning to get it on my thumb for a long time.
Go for it. It's a great reminder.
Yeah. It's like, it's take responsibility. It's like, oh, my circumstances are really shit. Yeah, you created them. You got yourself there. So make some positive changes. So is that from that moment of like saying I'm gonna quit the job? Is that when was the anorexia kind of getting under more control then? Or was that
it was getting under more control for sure.
Yeah.
I was just like literally just the extensive travel and the lifestyle was not serving me, and so it was kind of perpetuating the bad treatment I was giving to myself in some way, just because you know you're like in this like circle of like you feel lonely, you're in this hotel room, you eat like shit, so you prefer not to eat and blah blah blah. It's like
so it's kind of justifying it's kind of giving you an excuse to not eat.
Exactly. It's like just giving you an excuse and like circumstances to keep going in that wrong way in some way. But from that day, like I was really okay. Things need to change, but that it took maybe 2 years to get to where I am today. Like it took like again like time to explore other extremes, like of like really quitting and doing something very different, doing nothing. I did a professional coaching as well. Some like psychotherapy, like not just yoga, like yoga obviously, and like maybe exploring plant medicines as well. Very different, exploring very different tools to expand my mind, to expand my vision of the world, and to find myself, like just to really connect with what really excites me, what wakes me up in the morning, how do I want to.
But did you have a focus during that of healing the anorexia? Was that just kind of like, whilst everything else fell into place, that just kind of got organically healed? Or was there like, was you going to drink ayahuasca and going, I want to cure my illness? Or
for ayahuasca, for example, I went with that specific purpose to cure the anorexia, like other times I think the anorexia has been oftentimes intention of mine. We're doing different explorations, but I think ultimately it was a signal that something was wrong, was not really working in my life, just a signal of my mind and my body out of whack. I was not really aligned in all aspects of my life. So when you start to realign everything, to chill out, to take time, slowly you also start to change how you treat yourself, and it heals.
So do you see the anorexia as a blessing now?
I mean, it was such a big teacher.
It's like Bodhi was saying with the penis, the
impotence.
Impotency, Is that how he's impotent? Is it
I
the
don't
word?
know. I think in French.
It's
like a French
erectile dysfunction. But that was his healer. That was what forced him to change his life around.
I think for me that was the same. Sometimes I just don't like to just like put so much weight on one thing, especially as you know your life is so much more complex. But for sure that was.
And what would be your advice for someone suffering not even just with a disorder, with anorexia, with obesity, with something that an addiction, it's an addiction in a way, isn't it? It's kind of like an illness / addiction, sort of something that you get stuck into, a pattern of behavior. What would be your advice to somebody who's trying to find some way out, some solace, some healing, some medicine?
First, no shame. So much stigma on any kind of addictions and disorders, and so we tend to be ashamed of what we are going through. And so finding ways to like know that there is a way out, and we can talk to people about it, like we can find help. So reducing the stigma around that, and with that, no shame advice, like finding people that you trust to share. And I think especially if I take my story, because I was in some ways thriving in so many aspects of my life, I was like ashamed of saying that maybe I have a little some sort of a mental disorder here, right? Something is going on that is wrong. Like, oh, come on, why are you depressed? Why are you like, you are like, you have a great job, you have like good money. So when you are into that space, it's like you don't really dare sharing those struggles with people around you, even the closest people. So daring to speak and journaling, writing down, like the words have so much power. And when you write them down, if you cannot speak with someone, and even if you can anyway, write down anything that goes through your mind, good or bad, pleasant or unpleasant. Write it down. Like you take every day a little bit of time and you fill your notebook, because then you can let it out.
It's good to do it in the morning, first thing in the morning.
Yeah,
when you wake up.
when your mind is really
stream of consciousness. I don't know if you've done the Artist's Way. Have you heard of the Artist's Way?
I've heard about it. I've never done it. It's on my kind of to-do list, but apparently
it was on my. It's powerful, and the two things was the stream of consciousness, your pages in the morning, and taking yourself on dates. Like the guy was saying about your terminal days. It kind of felt a little bit like that. It's like, when dude, I'd never took myself on a date before.
Yeah. So I didn't do the Artist Way protocol,
but you did.
But
sort of.
I did sort of, because advice would be start to try to fall in love with your loneliness. Not that loneliness in the sense that you are alone. But the idea is like fall in love with yourself. Like think about the few pick me up. Right? What are the pick me up? I don't know. Getting a massage, or watching
jumping
comedy,
in some cold water,
or
cold shower.
Anything.
Change your state.
It's very personal, but like know those pick me up and use them when you like feel like you're going down, and spend time with yourself, not just alone all the time, like, because you tend to go to be alone, to go away from people when you're like suffering from those disorders. You want to hide. So you have to find the right balance. If spending time alone means getting yourself on a date and like nurturing yourself, that's great, right? But also you need to build your social life and like be supported by friends. And I think honestly, I'm a big advocate of yoga. Not that other types of activities are not helpful, but it's such a beautiful tool to reconnect all the parts of yourself, the shadows, the bright lights, and to connect all of them, and to understand that you are perfect as you are.
Yes.
And
you just got to remember it. So like uncovering it, and just it's there. It's just the art of remembering, your true essence.
And as you said, the more you go into those practices, the less drawn towards those maybe substances or behaviors you are, right? Because you start to realize pattern and to change. You're like, well, maybe that's cigarette. Actually, it doesn't really taste right now. And then
it's just doing it out of habit, out of like just it's just so funny, isn't it? The things that we do that just are unconscious, and we don't know why we're doing them, but because a lot of it, because who we're around when we're growing up, the geographical place that we were born into, and the behaviours of that space that we just are natural to us.
And we are feeling beings, right? So any mind-body practicings will increase your senses and your how you feel. So anything that you used to do in the past, it's like you rediscover it with new sensations, and maybe you're like, that doesn't feel so right now. Like I feel like were sharing with me this coffee story the other day, that you drank a coffee before going to yoga, when you don't drink coffee basically, or you stop drinking.
No, I did. But it was just the
it's just like you went to the yoga class and immediately you could feel like the effect of that one coffee on your body and mind, right? And you're like, whoa,
this is happening every day, but I'm not noticing it.
And that then you notice it. So then that's an opportunity for you to change, to act
And
different.
like,
Yeah.
don't fanny about people. Like, if you got to do something, change it like immediately. Like, I have friends who are like, gonna give up smoking probably the end of February,
Yeah.
like, you know, in November, and you're like,
It
just do it,
do it now.
just stop now. Like,
Yeah.
oh no, because I'm busy at the moment. I
Yeah.
need the headspace for it. It's like, no, just
Oh yeah,
just-
we are so good at finding excuses.
just crack on. Yeah, just get it done. Like, yeah.
Yeah, but first we're really good at finding excuses, and second, I think everyone has a different path, and some people are not ready to change maybe in this lifetime.
No.
So you may plant seeds for them, or open doors for them, or show them new ways of being
yeah.
and behaving, and they see it, but they are maybe not ready to really go into it, and that's okay, because that's their path.
Yeah. And
It's like when you plant seeds, when you plant like literally seeds,
Yeah,
maybe
they don't
there is
all-
one beautiful tree that is growing, and the next one is like never growing. Same
yeah.
for us, like
Yeah.
we are trees, basically.
But it's, for me, it's the people that are vocal about wanting to change,
Yeah.
and then they don't,
Act
like,
on
oh,
it,
I'll be
yeah.
going, I'll be traveling, and people will come, oh, I really want to go traveling, but I can't save the money, and I see them next year. Oh, I really want to go here, and see them next year. I'm like, don't tell me, don't tell me anymore. Either do it or don't do it. Put it to bed,
Yeah, it's like
or
the-
do it.
yeah.
Like, I don't want to hear it ever again. Okay,
Yeah.
bye.
Yeah. Thank you, bye. Yeah. It's like, taking responsibility for your life. So think, say, and act.
Yeah.
And
Let them be consistent as well. Yeah.
But it's hard, because like
It is hard.
practice. It's
And
a
that-
practice.
Yeah,
It's a practice,
it is.
right?
And but like, just quickly before we kind of start wrapping things up a little bit, is this corporate world and this yoga world, and then people who are in the corporate world go into a yoga class so that this life is more manageable.
Yeah.
And I have this perception of like, okay, I want you to not come to this yoga class so that your life becomes really unmanageable.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or
it's
come to the yoga class and make your life beautiful,
yeah.
not to make this bad shit to be able
bearable.
to cope with it. Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
like
bearable.
Like
Yeah,
a
yeah,
survival. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I have a. So if you look at, so for example, today, I feel like you have like this work hard, play hard mentality, right? That is still striving, and with that you have like, I work really hard. My life is like maybe miserable, and then I take some time off, and I go on a 10-day silent vipassana retreat, because I need that so much, this extreme so much, to be able to survive in the way I'm working and living today. That, as you said, there is like this, okay, this is a coping mechanism. I'm going there just for 10 days to like reset, to be able like to breathe, and then I go back into my kind of tough life, or survival mode. And I would say, I think if maybe when you see that happening, you want to say what you just said, like sort your life instead of doing like that,
finding the
extreme, to find like a way to cope and then to go back. But I think when you do that, even though at the beginning it seems a little odd, right? Because you just cope and then you go back. I'm sure that slowly it shows you things, like slowly, like
yes.
but surely it shows you that you really have to sort things out. You
And the
cannot
yoga
just
starts to empower you.
you cannot just like bounce in between those extremes.
Yeah.
But so that's why sometimes bringing yoga to the office, even though I've been really not skeptical about it, but I've myself taught yoga in the office. But I've always been like, well, do I really want to do that? Does it make sense? People are coming for the physical practice. I don't know if that really works well. But since people are not leaving their desk,
Yeah.
well, if we bring them yoga, maybe they will be more likely to go, and maybe through that, slowly they will
And
be.
it's bringing some light. You're getting to
Yeah.
shower that light in, even in
Exactly.
them spaces. I was the same about teaching in gyms when I
Mm.
first started teaching.
Yeah.
And actually, I just was like, no, I'm bringing something else to this
Yep.
environment that
Yep.
they're not going to get. They probably won't get it in their life.
Yeah.
They're definitely not going to be getting it in the gym from the gym instructors, you know. And
Yeah.
it's like I want to bring this. I'm like in a gym, and I'm like, this is a church right now. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? This is the equivalent of a church. This is a really sacred space. Like, we're
Yeah.
going to light incense. You're going to take your shoes off. You're going to respect it.
Mhm.
I'm not bothered that it's in a gym. I've put a force field of white light around this
Yeah.
space for us, for yoga practice. You're doing a spiritual practice. Whether you like it or not, you're doing a spiritual practice.
Yeah.
Even if you're not here for the spirituality,
Yeah.
you're doing it. You know, it's like going to a football game and going, I'm not going to watch the football.
Yeah.
You're at a football game. You know what I mean? It's like you're still at the football game.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with you. That's exactly the mindset I have right now about, or the thoughts I have right now about yoga into the office, for example.
Yeah.
But like, you're like creating something beautiful within that environment that is sometimes not so beautiful.
Yeah.
Like shining light on something, creating maybe for them also it's a reminder that, oh, maybe the kitchen area where we are doing the yoga is like, you go into the kitchen to get your coffee and you're like, oh, yesterday we had yoga there, and then you have all sorts of like thoughts, you know, that is like, oh, maybe I should do maybe yoga when I go back to my chair and do a little bit of stretching, maybe meditate, you know.
Yeah.
And then hopefully
That's a positive knock-on effect.
yeah. Spillover effect.
Yeah. Just massaging each other in the chairs, like.
Okay, pause, guys. No more Excel analysis.
Yeah. One person's getting all the coffees in. Crystals everywhere.
Yeah.
It's gone mad before you know it.
Yeah. That's the risk. Yeah.
So, is there anything like specific you want to like chat about before we kind of wrap things up, or is there anything like, oh, I want to say that? Oh,
I don't think so.
okay.
We have been chatting so much.
Yeah.
I don't know what else I can share. I mean, there is so much more to share, but I don't know if this is for this podcast.
No, well, if you ever fancy doing another one, I'd love to have you on. But it's been like a real pleasure, and I'm really, really grateful that I met you and that I've got to do this podcast, because I really wanted to do it, and I know there's a lot of people who listen to my show, who come to my classes, who are working in the corporate world and maybe not always really happy with their jobs. So I think, like, just thank you for sharing your experience and your kind of knowledge of that world, and the kind of insights of how to cross over, and, you know, that it can be managed to stay in that world and respect yourself and empower yourself. And I just think you're beautiful inside and out, and like, I felt the inside of you, you know, when we were doing the energy work, and it was like really pure, and I appreciate you and think you're magnificent. And keep doing your good work and teaching Jiva Mukti. And hopefully, do you know, when I've interviewed 10 Jiva Mukti teachers, they're definitely going to give me a free place, man.
Yeah.
Do you
maybe.
reckon?
I hope so. I support you. Yeah.
Sharon, David,
what,
or
now?
whoever's in charge now. Like,
you have 2 Jiva Mukti teachers
I've
on
done
the show.
2, yeah. I think I've done 2. 2 so far, yeah.
8 more to go.
8 more to go. Do them straight, 8 straight.
Yeah.
Right, guys?
Well,
Yeah.
I can only echo what you just said
Mm.
about our encounter, you and this show, and this opportunity. And yeah, if through what I just shared, I kind of shed light on something within some people that are watching, well, that's the greatest gift.
Yeah, totally.
I'm getting out of this show.
Totally, and I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will have like a really good, you know, even if you just capture one person with something that you've said, that's what it's.
Like
that's
a
the
story
magic,
of a
you know.
regular woman.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing your story, and thanks for for sharing the story of transformation. That's what the show's all about.
Thank you, Liam.
Nice one. Have a beautiful rest of your day, and have an amazing 2020 and a great full moon. Yeah.
A great full moon.
And we did the podcast.
Yo.
Yeah. Nice one. Thank you very much. Lots of love. Peace. Yeah.
This is the Dealer to Healer podcast.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dealer to Healer podcast. Please stay tuned for more episodes of transformation, of metamorphosis, of people becoming the most beautiful version of themselves and teaching you, the listeners, how to become the most beautiful version of yourself. So if you want all that information, all that knowledge, all these amazing guests that I've got on my show, please subscribe. There's a subscribe button somewhere on this screen, so please just link onto that. You'll get a notification straight away of any new episodes, and I promise you I've got epic guests coming up, so please stay tuned. If you want to know anything else about the Dealer to Healer movement, of what I've got going on, about my links to the book, links to my website, links to my music, everything, please go in the description below. It's just down there somewhere. You just hit description and everything, it'll tell you everything. So nice one, have a beautiful day, take it easy, and remember, please subscribe, that would be amazing. Peace.